It was an interesting announcement from the Prime Minister today that more than $1 billion worth of funding will be thrown at school kids to ensure that they read better. Or are better at reading. Obviously, I'm ad-libbing right now. Now, the thing that is incredible about this announcement is, firstly, the $1 billion, where does it come from? And it's funding that will not be thrown at schools immediately. It'll go out to 2019. So presumably it's money that we're not going to see until well after the election. So the Prime Minister might as well say, $2 billion. What about $6 billion? What about $14 billion? Whatever number's going to sound big enough, because we all know they can promise whatever they want. Post-September, they won't be delivering it. They could promise a guaranteed 100% at the end-of-year examinations for all students, provided their parents vote for the current government. And still, it's not going to change the votes. But the issues of education are damn important. You know this. And we've spoken about it before, particularly at the end of last year, when you try to match the Australian figures with some of our major competitor nations, this joint is going backwards. And it hasn't been going backwards for the past 5 minutes. It's been going backwards for the best part of the past 5 years. The Prime Minister herself, I think, said the most damning thing today about the Australian education system is that something like 74% of all kids going into the system now are a good chance of being below average when it comes to their ability to read. I don't understand why it's going to take $1 billion to turn it around. Presumably, just a refocus of what is told to children and what the focus is in the classroom. I don't get how it even costs $100 million, let alone $1 billion, and I don't understand how money, rather than teachers focusing on things like phonics, is actually going to help. But that to one side, the Prime Minister herself drops herself in it by saying 74% of kids mightn't be up to standard. Well, this is a standard that Julia Gillard oversaw. Remember, Julia Gillard, basically, all she ever really wanted to be, while ultimately Prime Minister, was a fantastic education minister. Remember when she was overseas and she said that she would be much more comfortable in a classroom in Victoria than strutting around with world leaders? Well, clearly, when it came to that, this Prime Minister was a failure. When this Prime Minister was the Education Minister, we had the BER, there was a gross overspending of people's money, and now we have a recognition that first under her watch and then a series of other ministers, 74% of kids are not up to standard. Once you put this Prime Minister and the former one together, since 2007, these guys have been in charge, and it is only now that we realise that we have a reading problem. It is only now that we realise we have to do something about it. And their solution, put together with the Macquarie University in Sydney, is to throw $1 billion at the problem, but that money doesn't roll out until between now and 2019. So which is it, Prime Minister? Is it an admission of failure, or is it a solution to a problem that would require you to admit failure first before we can go on to actually solve that problem?